All right, my name is James Caballero. Today's lesson is for module number 8. The lesson plan title is Collaborative Strategic Reading. The standards can be seen within the actual lesson plan. Today's objectives are going to be the student will be able to effectively identify unknown words with 90% accuracy using vocabulary strategies. And like I said, we have done these strategies. We did them throughout the summer. You did them in class. This is just going to be building off of that, okay? Student will be able to summarize individual paragraphs of the story using supporting details. This is another thing that you've done before. We're just going to practice it and learn some new strategies for it. And then the student will be able to use multiple strategies before reading, during reading, and after reading to comprehend a text. So you're just going to be using strategies at different times during your reading to be able to comprehend and understand a story. Okay? All right, the things that you need for this lesson are basic reading skills appropriate for second grade, which you have. You read at a much higher level than second grade.
Like third grade.
Like third and fourth grade level reading is where you're at.
Because I can read Harry Potter books and Fantastic Beasts books.
Yep, and then you'll need simple sounded out strategies for pronouncing difficult words, which you have. That's like sounding out the letters within a word. That's like chunking the word up so you can understand the different pieces of a word. We've worked on both of those strategies this summer too. Mm-hmm. And then you'll need just a basic understanding of what it means to understand a text or comprehend. So you know what that means. If you comprehend something, you understand it, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, the materials we'll be using are copies of these nonfiction texts that I have printed. I have a notebook for us and a pen so we can use that during our strategies. Should take a full class of about 20-25 kids. It should take about 30 to 40 minutes. We're in a one-on-one environment, so it might take us closer to 20 minutes. It can be used in whole group, small group, and one-on-one. So that's the nuts and bolts of what we're going to be working with.
My teacher makes my little, me.
Yeah. So what we are going to do is we're going to practice some strategies for before reading. We're going to practice some strategies during reading. And then we're going to practice some strategies for after reading, okay? And then we're going to practice them together. And then you're going to use all those different strategies by yourself on this last one, okay?
By myself?
Yep, by yourself. It's kind of just a show me what you know, okay? So that'll be the end of the lesson. You'll put everything we learned together in your own little individual section. So when you are reading a story that is nonfiction, it usually means that it's not made up. It's about something real and authentic, right? You know what nonfiction is?
Yeah, it means it's like how we dinosaurs and...
Yep, dinosaurs are nonfiction, animals, things that are...
Fiction is something...
Fiction's like Harry Potter and stories that aren't real. But nonfiction are real. And when we're reading nonfiction, the best thing we can do, the first part of the strategy, is to scan over the whole thing that we're going to be reading, okay? So you look it over, so when I'm looking at this, when I'm scanning it, I'm looking at the title. So the title is Wild Wild Weather. What do we notice about the title? It's bigger, right? It's bigger than the rest of the text. It's like the most important, right?
Yeah, it's nonfiction.
Oh yeah, we can read the nonfiction. But like if I'm looking at other things and I'm just scanning for understanding, I see that there's some more bold text parts, right? So I see that tornadoes is bolded out. And I see that there's another word called water spouts. I see that's bolded out. And then I see some pictures, some
I
little
see
images.
these bolded out.
Yeah, you see the directions are for me. That's just for me to tell. But yeah, you see these things that are bolded out. I see some of these pictures of a tornado. I see a picture of what looks like it's telling me how a tornado works. I see a map of the United States. Okay, so that's what happens when you scan a nonfiction text. These are all the things you look at, right? When you're scanning, does that make sense? So if you were about to do a read through of something that you've never seen before, you would just look kind of over it, see what the important details are.
Like a tornado.
No, let's not start reading. We're not doing any reading yet. This is all before reading. So after you scan it out, what do you think the next step would be after you scanned everything? You've kind of looked it all over. What would you do next?
I'd reread to gather more details.
Yep, you're gonna read. That'll be during reading. But after please sit up and stop pouting. I know it's late. So after you scan it, what you're gonna do is you're gonna brainstorm. All right, you're gonna brainstorm what you know about all these things, right? So what do you know about tornadoes?
That they are, that they spin.
That they spin, okay.
And they destroy houses.
They destroy houses. So
they're just made of wind and leaves and water.
Right. So they're made of wind and water, and they pick up leaves. So these are all things that you know about these topics, right? Okay, please let me finish my talking, and then you'll have a turn. All right. So when you're brainstorming, these are all things you're thinking of that you already know about the things that you've already looked at. Okay. So you scan the page, you saw tornadoes, and now you're brainstorming what you already know about tornadoes. So if the title is Wild, Wild Weather, we see some bold features called tornadoes. We see pictures of tornadoes. We see another unknown word called water spouts.
Water spouts is like because it looks like a little water spout. It got water coming out sometimes, and on top, I bet that's what.
Okay, so we take those first two things we did, the scanning and the brainstorming, and now we want to predict. Now we want to predict, what do we think this passage is going to be about? So tell me, what do you think it's going to be about after looking it over and after applying what you already know? What do you think this passage called Wild, Wild Weather is going to be about?
About wild weather, like tornadoes, like my natural disaster game.
Like natural disasters, yeah.
Tornadoes and acid rain and.
Oh, acid rain, yeah, could be. What else?
Fire.
Maybe some fire. But what do we see mostly? We see a picture of the tornado when we scan, and we saw this word called water spouts. So maybe it's just going to give us those two, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are good predictions. So what are the three things we did? What do we do first?
We read.
No, what did we do first? What was that first thing we did? What did I call it? We didn't do any reading. We just looked at it, right?
Got the highlighting.
Right. We scanned it. So the first thing you do when you get a piece of nonfiction text is you scan it, right? And then what do we do?
About the pictures.
We talked about what we already knew, right? We brainstormed about everything we already knew. And then what did we do just now? We made predictions.
Yeah.
All right, say them with me, because you're looking, sit up, please. You're looking tired. We got to keep you on your toes. Keep you on your toes. Ready? Same with me. Scan, brainstorm, predict. I say it by yourself.
Brain,
What was the first one?
scan,
Perfect.
brainstorm, predict.
Perfect. So those are all before you even read anything, okay? So now, while we're reading, I'm going to give you some more strategies, okay? These strategies are fun, all right? So the first strategy we're going to use is called click or clunk. So when something clicks, it means you just get it, right? Like if it clicks into your brain, it just fits into place, right? It's like a puzzle piece just fitting right where it goes. It clicks. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I read this whole first passage and nothing stops me, it just clicks, right?
Yeah, it just goes.
You have no problem. So what do you think it means when you clunk?
It doesn't work. It just goes.
It doesn't click, right? Something stops.
It can't click. It's thinking, but that's okay because if
Absolutely.
you think, you can get smarter.
Yep.
Not being perfect. If you're perfect,
Don't have to be perfect.
if
That's
you're
right.
perfect, you're
Please get your
a complete mess.
You're not a complete mess. It's just you don't have to be perfect. All right, so I'm going to read this first paragraph, okay? And if we get through it without coming to any words that cause us to stumble or maybe that we don't know, then that whole passage is a click. Because it just clicked. We just got it, didn't we? Right. All right. It's raining, it's pouring, the old man is snoring. Have you ever heard that song? It is a famous tune about the weather. Weather is something that affects us all daily. Extreme weather is something that affects most people only a few times in their lives. So did you hear anything you didn't understand? Did you hear any hard words or?
Pouring when I was little and snoring.
Well, no, not right. Not when you were little. Right now, do you understand everything that we read?
Yes.
So that passage just clicks, right?
It's easy, easy, easy because I.
It's easy peasy because you didn't struggle, right? So it's raining. Please listen. Let's focus. Make sure you. So it's raining. It's pouring. The old man is snoring. Have you ever heard that song? It's a famous tune about the weather. Weather is something that affects us all daily. Extreme weather is something that affects most people only a few times in their lives.
Extreme weather?
Does that word, do you know what that word means? All right. So that would be a what? If you don't know that word, and
it's not a click.
It's not a click, so what's the other thing? A clunk. Clunks aren't bad. It just means that we're going to use our other strategy, okay? So if the something that we can use to figure out a word like extreme. So you remember the strategy we used called context clues?
Does it mean it's like, does extreme mean it's like big and crazy?
Right, elaborate, like crazy and wild. And a way you could do that is by looking at the title. We know the title's about wild, wild weather. And we know that just by looking down at what weather's coming up, like tornadoes and water spouts, we know those are crazy. So extreme, just by looking at the other words and sentences and the title of the story, we can figure out that extreme means big and
crazy.
Like, yeah, crazy and wild.
Huge and wild and
yeah, just a really big disaster.
Like if it's like, or if it's like extreme, like.
So yeah, and if we read on, pay attention because this next paragraph's gonna. I know. I'm just telling you to focus up because this next paragraph's gonna help us too. So if you got stuck on extreme and you read on, listen. Extreme weather includes flooding rains, tornadoes, blizzards, and hurricanes. So if we know anything, like all about tornadoes, we know about flooding rains, We know about blizzards because we see it every year.
I don't know what a hurricane is. It's never happened. Wait, is it? No, that's an earthquake.
Yeah, an earthquake is another example of extreme weather, right?
Yeah, but
It's just underground. So listening to those things that they listed, flooding rains, tornadoes, blizzards, we know those are all examples of extreme. So that would help us. The fourth one was hurricanes.
What is a hurricane?
Hurricanes are just big waves of water that come in.
Like a tsunami?
Like a tsunami?
Yeah, tsunami.
Yeah, very close to a tsunami. Tsunamis, I think, are worse than hurricanes. Don't quote me on that, but they're similar. They're big waves of water that crash into the shore.
Same with
we don't have to worry about that though, because we're right in the middle of the country. But thinking about hurricanes and tsunamis and blizzards.
It's a huge wave, bigger than the top of the roof, and jumps over.
Yeah, and just crashes in. So we know it's destructive, right? So extreme weather is those are examples of extreme weather. So that helps us figure out. We can use that context to figure out what extreme means, which is part of the figuring out a vocabulary word, right? Remember how we used context clues to figure out the meaning of words? So that's a good way to use that vocabulary strategy. So I'm going to read this next paragraph and we'll see if everything clicks, okay? Or see if there's any clunks. You ready? Extreme weather includes flooding rains, tornadoes, blizzards, and hurricanes. People study weather so they can inform us. These are the people who give us the information we need so that we can remain safe in the case of extreme weather. That all clicked for me. Did you have any clunks in there? Yeah, clicked for me. All right. So now I'm going to read this next bullet point called tornadoes. All right. A tornado is a storm that can cause destruction in its path. Oh, that's a clunk for me. What's destruction mean?
Destruction means it's going to go over, and it's like destroy. Do you know what destroy is?
Perfect. See, you looked at part of the word. You broke the word down. This is great. You use the beginning of the word.
If you destroy something, it's like destruction.
Absolutely. That's a great connection. That's another use of a vocabulary strategy that we can use when we come to a word we don't know.
Like when we play our Lego game and we destroy things.
Right. When we destroy things, we are causing destruction. That is great. That is a great connection you made there, Olivia. So a tornado is a storm that can cause destruction. Now that clicks for me because now I know.
It definitely clicked for me. I can't click. My fingers got sweaty. No, because my fingers got sweaty.
Oh, you got them sweaty hands. Winds can reach up to 300 miles per hour. Tornadoes form from thunderstorms. They are most common in an area of the United States called Tornado Valley. Or Tornado Alley, I'm sorry. It's called Tornado Alley. This area is where many tornadoes form because of the way the air moves. So if you see our picture, this is another thing that nonfiction texts have. So it's showing us Tornado Valley. Alley. Thank you. I keep saying valley. I don't know why I want to say that.
Because valley and alley mean the same thing. So you can say
alley and valley mean different things. They just sound really similar because alley is within valley. You just add a V and it makes it valley. You know something cool about this map and unfortunate too? Tornado Alley, this is where it's most likely going to happen, right? You know where we live?
That looks like an L or 7.
Right, but pay attention. You know where we live? We live right in the top of Tornado Alley. So tornadoes can definitely form around us.
No!
I know. That's kind of scary, huh? Don't worry, there's all kinds of stuff to protect us in case a tornado does come. But we live in Tornado Alley. Isn't that kind of crazy?
And we haven't ever had our first tornado.
Well, we haven't had one in Council Bluffs in a long, long time. Towns close to us have had touchdowns. But let's keep reading, okay?
We've had one actually close by when I went with Dan's parents. One formed, but it passed us.
Yeah. Let's keep reading, okay? You ready?
Okay.
Cool, dry air from the north and warm, wet air from the south meet. This causes thunderstorms, which can become severe. When the atmosphere is not stable, the winds can increase and produce a
I
tornado.
learned what a water spout is.
Okay, let's hold on. We're going to get there. You're reading ahead. You got to focus on because what did I just read? Did you pay attention at all? Yeah, because you weren't listening. You got to put your listening ears on. Sit up, please.
I want to go to bed.
I know, we need to finish this. Otherwise, you won't be able to have your day with your grandpa tomorrow. Okay, ready? We need to finish. Now pay attention because I'm going to read this. And I'm pretty sure there's a clunk in here for both of us.
Where?
Well, if you listen, we can find it. You ready? Cool, dry air from the north and warm, wet air from the south meet. This causes thunderstorms, which can become severe. When the atmosphere is not stable, the winds can increase and produce a tornado.
What's the clunk in there for you?
Atmosphere.
I know what that means.
What's that?
It's like the world. It's like the planet.
The planet is the atmosphere?
Atmosphere is like a planet, but it's not.
Let's see if we can find some words in there. Olivia, we're using a strategy. I'm teaching you a strategy so we can, because your description doesn't quite make sense. Because you said it's the world around us. So when the world around us is not stable, that doesn't make sense to me. So let's try and find some context clues, see if we can figure out what atmosphere might mean. So what did that first sentence tell us about? Cool, dry air from the north and warm, wet air from the south.
I don't know.
What's the common thing between those two sentences? Cool, dry air, warm, wet air. What's the one word it keeps repeating?
Air.
Air.
So the atmosphere is air.
The atmosphere is the air all around us.
You knew that.
I do now because I used my context clues. I did not. I had no idea.
Yes.
But now I do because I use my strategies within my reading. All right, please sit up. So let's try that. When the air around us is not stable, the winds can increase and produce a tornado. That sounds a lot better to me.
Wait, we're not in it.
Yeah, we're right there, girl. That's Council Bluffs, right there in the yellow. I promise you, we live in Tornado Alley.
Can we move to
Can we move to not Tornado Alley? I think so.
I want to go to California.
California, absolutely. Let's go live on the coast. All right, ready? Then we have hurricanes to worry about.
What?
What? That's what happens on the coast. All right, sit up. You ready? Now we're moving on to water spouts. A water spout is a weak tornado. It forms over water. It can happen on the ocean. It can happen on smaller bodies of water, such as lakes. That all clicked for me, right? Did that click for you? Can you sit up, please? Come on, put your feet down. The faster you pay attention, the more you focus, the better we can get through this. Stop rubbing your eyes, sit up.
Why is it itchy, Daddy?
Well, they're itchy because you have your fingers out.
I just want the...
Let's focus. Sit up, feet down.
I don't want to do this. This
Well, if you don't want
dark out.
If you don't want to do this, then you're going to have to lose your whole weekend. We don't want to lose our weekend. We want to get this done and be done. Ready? Water spouts are most common in the Gulf of Mexico. They have occurred in the tropics as well. Waterspouts can pick up things such as animals or tree limbs and drop them in other places. If a waterspout moves onto land, it becomes a tornado and can cause damage. You have anything that clunked for you? That all clicked for me. Is there anything in there that you could think of that might have stopped you? All right. Clicks for you. All right. Wild weather comes in many forms. Tornadoes and waterspouts are directly connected and look alike. Both weather events require attention because they can be dangerous to humans and animals. Wild weather is fascinating.
If you jump into a tornado, does it kill you or just spin you and drop you somewhere?
What do you think? If you get picked up by a tornado going 300, all right. I don't think you understand how fast 300 miles per hour is. So when we're driving in our car, we're usually going 60 miles per hour. So imagine going 3 times, almost 4 times as fast as the car is going, and then flying out of the tornado.
No!
I can tell you, you're not going to be a happy camper when you land. It's not a fun amusement park ride. All right, wild weather is fascinating and it is completely unpredictable sometimes. Anything in there for you? What was a clunk for you?
No.
You want to reread it? Okay, pay attention. Wild weather comes in many forms. Tornadoes and waterspouts are directly connected and look alike. Both weather events require attention because they can be dangerous to humans and animals. Wild weather is fascinating and it is completely unpredictable sometimes.
Everything clicked for me.
Yep, that's a click for me too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the strategy we practiced while we were reading was the click or clunk, right?
Are we done?
Well, we're going to go over it all really quick, and then we're going to practice the after reading strategy really quick, and then you have yours, and that's it. Okay, you're almost there. So
I don't want
stick
to
with me. Please sit up.
Mm.
Stick with me. You're not paying attention. You're making this way more difficult than it needs to be.
Do I have to do mine on camera?
No. Okay. So just stop. Focus. Pay attention. Stop clapping your knees. Sit down. Back straight. Pay attention. Eyes on me. Stop crying. Stop doing what you're doing with your face. All right. So we practiced before reading, which was what? What did we do before we read? We scan.
Over
brainstorm. Good job, man. What did we do that last?
I can't remember.
Predicted. Good job. Okay, so those were the 3 things we did before reading. What did we just do while we were reading?
Reading?
What was that strategy? While we were reading.
To reread and go back and see if it was a click or a clunk.
That's what it's called, right? Click or clunk. That's the strategy. If everything clicked, then it all made sense. If there was a clunk, you need to go back and use the strategy, right? You need to use that context clue and looking at parts of the word. Please stop doing what you're doing. It's weird and very distracting. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to think of the after reading strategy, okay? Olivia, this is the easiest part. I really wish you would pay attention and focus because it makes it hard for me, it makes it hard for you, and then nobody's learning. And when nobody's learning, we're wasting our time. Please focus. You stay up way later than this. This isn't your bedtime. I don't feel sorry for you. So please stop. You're making it difficult for everybody. Once you pay attention, I can teach, then everybody's happy, okay? Ready? 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 What? I don't hear anything.
Ready.
Ready. Okay, so what are we going to talk about now?
After
After reading strategy, please pay attention. Ready? Oh, stop. You're gonna. All right, ready? So when you are done reading, to help you comprehend and remember, what you're going to do is think of questions that might be asked about the reading. So when we think of what questions might be asked, it helps us remember what we just read. So what kinds of questions do you think somebody might ask you after reading that whole wild, wild weather? What might they ask you?
Ask what?
What kind of questions would somebody ask you after reading that wild, wild weather?
What
So
did
for
you
example,
what did you do to read it? How did you read it?
well, that I'm talking about specifically within that reading. So for example, I'll give you an example to start us off. So what is a tornado? That might be a question that they ask that you can find in the reading or that you can answer after the reading, right?
We got told what a tornado was.
Exactly. We got told what a tornado was. So that might be a question that they ask you.
Why?
So all you're doing is thinking of questions that somebody might ask you based on what you learned from the reading, okay? So what is a tornado? Somebody might ask you that. So what's another question someone might ask you?
I want to do this.
Go for it. What's another question?
What is a water spout?
What is a water spout? Perfect. See, this is easy.
How many?
Nothing to cry about.
More?
So another example would be, where is Tornado Alley? Somebody might ask you that, and how could you answer that? How could you answer that?
You took away my other two questions.
How could you answer that? Olivia, how could you answer if somebody asked you, where is Tornado Alley?
I can't name all of those little things that show me.
I'm not asking you to name them.
I want to
I'm
name.
asking you what could you use to answer that question?
It's in the middle of the.
It's in the middle of the United States of America. How do you know that? Is there a big picture on there for you? Yeah, so what could you use to answer that question? Probably the big picture they give you, right? You are making this way harder than it needs to be. Well, give me one more example of a question they might ask you.
You took away my questions, Daddy.
What's a tornado? What's a water spout? Where's Tornado Alley?
Where's our town in Tornado Alley?
Is your town in Tornado Alley? Absolutely, you could answer that.
Our tornado is our.
Somebody might ask you, is your town in Tornado Alley? And you know how they can answer that?
Our town is in Tornado
Olivia,
Alley.
I know. You just keep fixing the same. We're saying the same thing, so you don't have to repeat it 6 times, okay? But yes, that's a good question. Is your town in Tornado Alley? So how could somebody answer that? Once again, what could they use? If you were asked, is your town in Tornado Alley? Absolutely.
But you can barely read it in the pictures.
You don't have to read it. You just got to know where your town is. Do you think the teacher might help point out your town on here? Probably. I would help a student if they asked me. All right. So, for the final assessment, since we're kind of going here quickly, what would you do if I gave you this sheet and told you that you were going to use all of the things we learned? What would you start with? How would you start that? Walk me through it. What would you do first if I gave this to you and told you to
scanning and brainstorming and
Okay, go slow. Go slow. Think about it. I know you're in a big old rush, but walk me through it. Walk me through it like we did just. So what would you start with?
brainstorming.
You'd start with brainstorming? I wouldn't. I'd start with something else.
Scary.
Yeah, what would you scan? What would you look for?
Detailed pictures.
The pictures, the details. What else would you look at?
Topics.
The topics, the title. Good job. And then what would you do?
Brainstorm.
What does it mean when you brainstorm? What do we do with wild, wild weather? You talked about what you already
No.
Right. So when you brainstorm, so if you looked at this picture of a big old fish,
It was raccoon.
that's okay. So if you looked at this picture and you were brainstorming, you would tell me everything you already know about manatee.
Then you would predict.
And then you predict. So what would you predict this story is going to be about? Come on, walk with. We're at the final part. We can see the finish line. Help me out here.
I'm thinking you'll predict what you thought of.
So what would you predict? What would you predict the story is going to be about?
What the story's gonna be about.
I'm asking you what you predict this story right here in my hand is going to be about. Olivia,
I'm thinking.
all you have to do is read, brainstorm, and then predict. Olivia, look. Read the title. Look at the pictures.
Walruses. Predict about.
Did you read that word?
Manatees.
Manatees. So what would you predict this is going to be about?
Manatee.
Manatees. You want to know why? That's a picture of a manatee. This says Manatee Facts. The title is called An Introduction to Manatees. So I think it's safe to predict that this whole story is going to be about manatees. All right, then what would you do? Come on, we're at the finish line. I just need you to sit up one more time.
Click and clunk.
Absolutely. You read that first paragraph, and then what would you do? You'd see if everything clicked, right?
Or close.
All right, let's say you got through that first paragraph, nothing happened. You didn't stop once, so that'd be a what?
Click.
All right, let's say you came across a word in the second paragraph, and you don't know it. What was that?
Clunk.
Clunk. Clunks aren't bad.
It's
Remember
not
that?
hard.
You're saying clunk like it's bad. It's not bad.
Clunk
It
is
just means that you need to stop and think about it. Because remember what you said at the beginning, you don't have to be perfect, right? A clunk just means that you have something to learn. Okay? So let's say you clunked in the second paragraph. What would you do? What strategy would you use to help you get through that clunk? What did we do when we came across atmosphere? We used
go back and use the words.
the context clues, right? You're not doing bad. Stop beating yourself up, kiddo. All right, so you clunked, then you went back in, you used some context clue, you figured out the word, you gave it a definition, and then you read it again, and it was a what? And then it was a what?
Click.
And it clicked. Don't click your leg. All right. Read the third paragraph. Everything was smooth. What is that? It all just clicked. All right.
Are we in questions?
We're not actually. I'm just trying to get your thought process of what you would do with this page. Okay. All right. So you read the whole story. It's all clicking with you now. What would you do when you finished your story?
Write the questions.
If there were no questions given to you, what would you do to remember that story or to help you understand it?
Go back and read. So you have click, click, click instead of clunk.
Yep, it's all click, click, clicking. And then what would be your after reading strategy you would use? Excuse me. What did we do? We thought of what? What did we come up with at the end of Wild Wild Weather? We said, what is a tornado? What is a water spout?
Questions.
So what would you do?
Ask questions and answer them.
Right, you would come up with questions somebody might ask you, and then you would answer them, right? That'll help you remember what was important about the story, and then you'll have answers for it because of what you read.
Now, can we do the questions?
We don't need to do the questions. We didn't do any of the reading. You didn't do any of the reading, so how are you going to answer the question?
Read now.
No, this was supposed to be your strategy. I just wanted to make sure that your thought process followed what we learned today. So what did you learn today?
Clink and clunk.
Click and clunk for during reading.
And
Scanning,
brainstorming and predicting.
and predicting at the beginning of the story. And what did you learn about after reading?
After reading.
Yeah. You said rereading, and then you said thinking of questions, right?
Yeah.
Thinking of questions from the story. So that's how you would tackle this one if I
We're
gave it to
after
you.
reading right now and asking questions of what we after read already.
Right. All right. You are all done. Go ahead and get out of here.
Bye.
Bye.